What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with hogsports.com. That's HAWGsports.com. Today, as always, on the docket, Razorback football, basketball, baseball, and recruiting. Pete Roulier, Keith Grayson, and Danny West going to join us to talk about all of that stuff and more. It's all happening on Hog Sports Live. Okay, just a few things to get to real quick. For some reason on Facebook Live, it's blacking out on my end, but it looks like it's still working. I'm not going to be able to read comments, I guess, so unless I somehow figure out how to refresh the page, but it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to read comments today. So just a couple of things. Arkansas won baseball series over Kentucky 2-1 in Lexington. They're going to return home to face LSU Thursday in a 3-game series in Baum Walker. And we'll have Pete Roulier on joining us at the end of the show to talk about that. Arkansas football had several visitors in over the weekend. And we're also going to talk about the top 10 Razorbacks, not Razorback football recruits, but just the top 10 prospects in the state of Arkansas, our annual Natural 21 list. It's going to break down the top 21 prospects in Arkansas. We're going to focus on the top 10 just for the focus of this show, and you can read more about that at hogsports.com. Eric Musselman, of course, still out on the trail. We're going to be joined here shortly by Danny West. He'll be next up. And also disgraced former president of the Arizona Razorback Club, Keith Grayson, is going to join us to talk a little bit about just what's going on with the Razorbacks from a fan perspective. We'll probably get into a little bit of Game of Thrones and Avengers stuff also. So I'm going to go ahead and reach out to Danny West first. We're going to bring him in, and we'll go over this top 10 and talk about the visitors that came in here on the weekend. So let me go ahead and get Danny on the phone.
What do you say?
Danny West, my friend. So we're on Hog Sports Live.
That's a stretch.
My acquaintance.
Yeah, I know you.
Yeah, I hear you. You're on with Hog Sports Live. For some reason, we're having a little bit of trouble with Facebook. It's just kind of blacking out, so I can't answer any questions, but we've got so much stuff to talk about anyway, it's not going to be that big a deal. So I wanted to jump in first, Danny, if you don't mind. Let's talk about these official visitors that came in on the weekend. Let's start with Brandon Frazier, tight end out of McKinney North High School, 6'7", 249 pounds.
Yeah, I think they're still in a really good spot there, Trey. Baylor, in my opinion, is probably the biggest competition at this point. And Brandon said it yesterday, straight up. The only difference right now for Arkansas is they haven't started winning yet. And I think he believes they will start winning. But until that's proven, there is somewhat of a question mark there. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, another top target of theirs just a few minutes ago, Dominic Richardson, a running back, just saw him commit to TCU just a few minutes ago there. So there is still some hesitation when you're coming off of 2-10. And Richardson is a guy that came up here a few weeks ago for an official and named Arkansas as leader. I made a pick. I said, I think Arkansas is going to get him. He goes to TCU this past weekend, and ultimately now he's committed to them. So my point is, Trey, they're really close on a lot of kids, but there is still some hesitation, a little bit of pause for a lot of these kids until you go out there and prove that you're making improvements on the field, right? So,
right.
But to answer your question, I do think they're still in a really good spot for Brandon. And let me tell you, he's a really impressive 6'7", 249-pound kid. So still in a good spot with him. I'll run through the other ones. The biggest news coming out
Hey, Danny,
of the
real
weekend,
quick, let me mention to everybody, before we get started too much here, I did figure out a way to backdoor my way here on to Facebook, so I can see the comments. If you have a comment or a question you want to bring up, I've got that figured out now. And also, I want to remind everybody to like, share, follow, comment if you have not done so already. If you like the content that we're bringing at hogsports.com, be sure to do one of those things. If you're listening on podcasts, and there are plenty of ways to listen. You can listen on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, a lot of different options for you to watch or listen to the show. But if you're listening on podcasts, be sure to throw us 5 stars and throw us a rating as well. So, all right, Danny, I'll let you get back into it. Who you want to go to next?
Yeah, the JUCO linebacker. That was the biggest news coming out of the weekend. We've been talking for how many weeks, months now, Trey? Are they going to find any help for the 2019 roster at linebacker? Ironically, they kid a couple of weeks ago, of course, Jawan Mitchell, a guy out of Butler, Community College in Kansas, number 1 rated inside linebacker, JUCO linebacker in the country. He sets up a visit. They offer him. He comes in, and everybody still assumes he's graduating in December of this year, and he would be coming in next year. Well, yesterday he told me, he said, well, Arkansas wants me to come in and play alongside Scooter. And I said, well, he's a senior, right? So he won't be here next year. He said, oh, no, if I come here, I would be here in a few weeks later this month. So I was like, oh, okay. So
Yeah.
it's kind of one
Quite
of those
the twist.
moments, Yeah. So that would be really big. Of course, the Texas Longhorns, as they have a trend of doing here lately, they've come in and offered this guy. He is going to take an official visit down there. So you've got some competition. And, of course, he's still committed to Minnesota. We keep forgetting that little fact.
Mm-hmm.
But so there's a lot going on with him, but Arkansas desperately needs this guy big time. So look up Jawan Mitchell and get caught up on him. And then the other few guys, it was as expected. Savion Williams, you're still in a really good spot there. Jahari Rogers obviously came in. He's a big-time four-star cornerback out of Arlington. And I think it's going to be an uphill battle, to be honest with you, to try to get him.
Mm-hmm. What about Garrett Hayes? I don't think we touched on him.
Garrett Hayes.
Yeah.
How could I forget Garrett? He told us yesterday that he plans on waiting until this fall. He's still not in any kind of hurry. I think so many times people that follow recruiting, and I'm guilty of it too, you start getting into the month of May and you start hitting that panic button a little bit on some of these guys. Like, why hasn't he committed yet?
Mm-hmm.
Well, sometimes you got to remember it's still early. Like, just because you're not in that kid's shoes. So he still wants to take all of his visits. I do think they're still in a good place with Garrett. And Texas A&M obviously is still very much in the mix there. His mother went there. But, Arkansas has been in there for as long as anybody. They got in on Garrett really early, and I think that's paying off for them.
Danny West joining us here with hogsports.com. You can read all of Danny's content at hogsports.com. It's HAWGsports.com, and he is our primary recruiting man. I want to get into the Natural 21. So for those of you who aren't familiar with our Natural 21, we've been doing that list for probably about this is probably our 14th. Danny's really taken over it here the last decade or so. I want to real quickly go over the guys that are number 11 through 21. Zion Slade, an athlete out of Maumelle. Jawan Boyd, safety out of Springdale. Rhett Thurman, kicker out of Cabot. Darian Thompson, athlete out of Prescott. Kevin Compton, a safety out of Watson Chapel. Jaden Kelly, a running back out of Pulaski Academy. Jonas Higson, linebacker, Bentonville West. Jason Lamble, offensive lineman out of Malvern. Dalton Purdue, offensive lineman out of El Dorado. Bryant Burns, tight end out of Ozark. And Quade Mosier, out of linebacker out of Fayetteville? Quade Mosier, a linebacker out of Fayetteville. So that's 21 through 11. And I figure we'll start off here with Brandon Thomas out of North Little Rock, the top running back you have in the state, number 10.
Yeah, really stocky guy. He's obviously highly productive, 5'10", 190. Looks like $1 million, man. I think the only thing that might be missing is his overall top end speed. He's lacking in that department a little bit, but from what I understand, he's improved it already this offseason. So maybe a guy you bring to camp and see where he goes from there. But he's already got some nice options out there. Memphis, Louisiana Tech. He's a guy that I could see moving up at some point. If as long as everything off the field is in order, he's got a chance.
Number 9 is Hunter Lloyd, quarterback out of Rogers.
Yeah, one of the best kept secrets in NWA right now, or I should say outside of NWA. A lot of people here know about him. 6'4", 200, dual threat guy. He's a guy that he's put down 4 5s in the 40 before. Of course, that's handheld, but it tells you a little bit about his athleticism. You watch his film. He's really technically sound. I like this kid a lot, and I think I'm reminded of Taylor Powell. A couple of years ago, coming out of Fayetteville. Seemed like it took forever for him to start building up the offers that he really wanted. And what you see towards the end of the year, a lot of teams are going to strike out on their top 2, maybe even 3 guys. They've got to have somebody. I think if Hunter will just be patient, there's no telling what could happen, for him later this year. So, I like Hunter Lloyd a lot out of Rogers.
Number 8, Chris Hightower, wide receiver out of Little Rock Christian.
Yeah, I made the comparison earlier to Sean Michael Flanagan,
Mm-hmm.
coming out of Charleston years ago. He's 6'2", 185, 190. He's put down a 4.53 in the past. So that's pretty solid. He played, obviously, with Justice Hill last year as his quarterback. So I'll be curious to see what type of production he keeps going with this year now that Justice is out of there. But really good athlete. I've seen him in person a few times, different camps and whatnot, and I like Chris quite a bit. So, he's another guy. He could move up or down depending on what he does throughout your year.
Next up, Aaron Smith, offensive lineman out of North Little Rock.
Kind of interesting deal. At the first of the year, it looked like Aaron Smith was going to be the top-rated offensive lineman in the state. And, depending on who you ask, maybe he still is. But in my opinion, I think and we'll get to Robert in a minute, but I do think Robert is slightly ahead of him at this point. But, yeah, North Little Rock, Aaron Smith, big kid, long guy. He came up, I want to say in January for an unofficial. I remember just looking at him and being like, wow, this kid's really got something to him. So keep an eye on him. I think the Kansas Jayhawks have offered, SMU, Louisiana Tech, Memphis. So really quality early offers for Aaron.
Next up, Danny, you have number 6, Kendarius Moore, linebacker out of WM.
Maybe the best kept secret across the state, in my opinion. This linebacker, he can, Trey, I think he's an outside linebacker in high school, 6'1", 210. He's shown that he can cover and run and do a little bit of everything. But at the same time, he might be a guy that can move inside. I think he's got a really good frame and physicality about him. So, yeah, Kendarius has started to heat up over the last couple of weeks. You've seen him pick up an SEC offer. It's Vanderbilt, but they're in the SEC. So that's a really good offer in my opinion. And there's another one last week. So, this guy's stock is just straight, on the rise every single week. He's got like a 23 or 24 ACT. So there's a lot to like about this guy. In fact, I said in the Natural 21 that, if you're looking for a guy who may eventually be in the top 3 or 4, this guy may be it. I really, really like Kendarius.
Another guy you really like, number 5, has an Arkansas offer, Cottrell Wallace, outside linebacker, defensive end out of Bryant.
Long and lean and very mean. I like Cottrell Wallace a lot. I saw him up here at, I want to say Bentonville West. Maybe it was at Harbor last year, but I've seen him a couple of times. He was back up here for the spring game. You take one look at him, I think he might be 6'7" now, Trey. This dude is big. So that 6'6", 210 that you're looking at there, that may be a little bit low in my opinion, but he's a guy that's going to keep growing. The first comparison we always make on a long and lean defensive end outside linebacker is who? Jamal Anderson, right? Going back over a decade ago. So I think he's got plenty of potential. Obviously, Oklahoma State, Ole Miss, Nebraska, Arkansas, they all agree. So, yeah, he's got a little bit of everything. When you talk about 6'6", 210, and this guy is lined up at free safety, outside linebacker, true defensive end, there's just a lot to like about Cottrell.
Number 4 on your list, Robert Scott out of Conway, offensive lineman, Arkansas offer.
Yeah. Like I said, one of the biggest surprises, kind of came out of nowhere. Didn't receive his first offer until February 3rd this year. I thought he had a really good junior year, and now you look up and he's got Arkansas, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, TCU, Nebraska, Missouri. So a lot of options there. Continues to grow. I thought that was always the question with him when he was 6'6", 270, and now you look up, he's 295, 300 pounds all of a sudden, really light feet, really agile guy. So, yeah, another big-time guy. Probably, in my opinion, Trey, I think he's the best offensive lineman in the state. But like I said, Aaron Smith, you could throw him in that conversation as well.
Next up on the list, number 3, we think of him as an athlete, but we've got him listed as a strong side defensive end, Blaine Toll out of Hazen, Arkansas.
Jumbo athlete, right? Big dude. Matter of fact, I think he last checked in at like 244 pounds at one of the opening regional events. And another guy that kind of does it all. If you've been to Hazen, they're a small school. So when you have an athlete like Blaine, you can you force him to do everything. He's played quarterback, defensive tackle, you name it, he's done it for him. And obviously really strong, probably not the most explosive defensive player in the state this year. But in my opinion, he more than makes up for that. You've seen his offer list now: Oklahoma, Tennessee, Auburn, LSU, all these big-time schools. Penn State just offered. I mean, come on, that's hard to hide at some point. I think he's you could make a case, Trey, that he's number one in the state. I'm sure all the people around Hazen are going to remind me of that throughout the day today, and I just want to go ahead and put that out there that by all means he could be number one in the state. It's a really
tight
early list.
It's a tight three here.
It's very tight.
Yeah, I
very
think it's
tight year.
Blaine Toll also with an Arkansas offer, as does Jashad Stewart, your number 2 on the list. Weak side defensive end out of Jonesboro, Arkansas, could also possibly be a linebacker, outside linebacker. I think that's kind of what we're thinking, isn't it, Danny?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking right now. 6'1", 223. I thought he's had a really impressive offseason. When you think about what he did in St. Louis, going up there and recording one of the highest scores in the nation, a 4.6 140, 4.14 shuttle at 223 pounds. You'll take that all day. The 35-inch vertical. And then you think about what he did on the field last year: 89 tackles, 24 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, and probably going to better that this year. So there's a lot to like about Jashad. I've liked him for a long time now, ever since I first saw him on film. Really aggressive, high motor guy, and really a great kid too. So you could make a case for Jashad being number one. You really could.
And number 1 on the list out of Morrilton, quarterback Jacoby Criswell.
Yeah, he's pretty good, 6'1", 218 pounds. You got to love him. Everybody knows his story, his brother being Dre Greenlaw and some of the struggles they've been through as a family. But that's not why we put him at number 1. It's just talent and potential. I think he's earned that right. Then you look at his offer list: Georgia, Mississippi State, North Carolina, Oklahoma State, Miami, I think recently jumped on board there. So he's got the offers to back it up too. And then the production, Trey. This guy can make just about any throw on the field, super strong arm, and he is a dual threat quarterback. I don't think he's a blazing speed type guy. If you've gone out and watched him, I don't think he's a burner, but he's got more than enough athleticism to, extend plays, get away from people, throw on the run, those type of things. So probably the safest pick, when you go with a quarterback at number 1, but that's the route I'm taking so far.
He's also got some suddenness about him. May not have the quite the top end speed, but got some suddenness. Okay, Danny, let's get to a couple of questions real quick. I want to get to a couple questions for you, although we did go quite long there. Mike McConnell wants to know, where do you think we need to be record-wise to convince these recruits it's worth committing to Arkansas? You mentioned earlier Brandon Frazier may be a guy that wants to see where Arkansas is headed record-wise.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to point at a bowl game, right? Any bowl game. I don't care if you have to go to Shreveport, Birmingham, Alaska, right? If you can make any bowl game, I think it does a lot for you going forward. More than anything, it gives you something to point at with these recruits and say, hey, we were 2-10 last year. Now we're in the, backyard bowl and wherever, but you get those extra practices, which allows you, depending on how the recruiting calendar shakes up, could have some more potential recruits on campus. Obviously the experience of those practices themselves. And, it just gives you something else to point to. But having said that, if you go 5-7 and it's the right type of 5-7, I know nobody wants a losing season, but if you're in ball games and you've proven you're just competitive, you're really knocking on the door there. I think you can get by with that and sell that to a certain extent. But granted, yeah, you definitely would love to make a bowl game this year and get back to the postseason.
There's some talent in North Little Rock, I guess, and some in surrounding areas, maybe Maumelle and Bryant, but nothing really from Little Rock School District. Let's see, where is that? Dontrell Wesley points out. What does Little Rock School District got to do to turn out more athletes?
Ooh, how long do we have? That is a deep
Make
conversation.
it short.
Yeah, I think a lot of kids nowadays, they think they're the next LeBron James, and more power to them. You know, there's so many kids, Trey. I went to a basketball event up here a few weeks ago, and it's called the Warm Up. Shout out to the Warm Up. They put on a great event up here at Fayetteville High. But, you know, I was just looking at some of those kids, and yeah, maybe they can go play D2 or NAIA basketball at some point, but man, some of those guys could make a really good defensive end, you know, on a high level. So
those guys used to play defensive end. Now everybody wants to specialize in one sport.
That's right. Everybody's D-Wade all of a sudden. So I don't know. We could talk at length about that all day long about some of the problems they've got there. But maybe I'll do a study on it.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do a whole show on it one time when we have more time.
Yeah.
Terry Roy, I want to get you out with this one, Danny. Terry says,
Roy.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting question.
Can't wait.
He has you blocked, but he's going to ask you a question. Why do y'all think Arkansas can't recruit top 30 talent on the offensive line and defensive line? On offensive line and running back, since that seems to be the main needs on this team. I would say, obviously, they just got Takias Crawford, who's a top 100 prospect on the offensive line. They seem to be in good shape with Garrett Hayes and some other offensive linemen. So I don't know if that's quite the case on offensive line, considering they just got Takias Crawford. But running back, I mean, there's not just like a 4-star back that's just popping out right now. Maybe some guys that would emerge to that.
Yeah, it's kind of a head-scratcher to me, too. I can tell you this, Jeff Traylor is knocking on the door for a lot of these kids. I think he's in the ball game for them, but for whatever reason, it's kind of been the same trend at linebacker for well over a decade. You can recruit certain spots so highly. The tight end, they've had a lot of good players there. Over the last couple of years, ever since Justin Stepp gets here, you're pulling in all these 4-star receivers. So it is cyclical, if that's a word. That's a word, right, Trey? Cyclical.
Yes, you can say
to
that.
An extent.
It works.
I pulled it off. But, I'm not sure there is a reason. But at some point, I'm sure they're going to break through and start signing these 4-stars again at the running back spot. And I was going where you just went with the offensive line. When you talk about Takias Crawford and where they're at with Garrett Hayes, if they could pull that off, you're talking about two of the top 112 players in the country, regardless of position. So I think that would go a long way. And then you just you signed a couple of JUCO guys there, specifically Myron Cunningham. He was highly regarded. Chaboise Nwana, of course, was as well. Didn't quite have the same offers, but yeah, I think they're picking it up a little bit on the O-line.
All right, Danny. Appreciate you joining us, man. That's Danny West with hogsports.com. If you like what Danny's doing for us, be sure to throw us that thumbs up, rate the video. If you're listening on podcast, give us 5 stars. Like, share, follow, comment, all of those good things. All right, everybody. So Jacob Harrod asked real quick about Memphis linebackers. So you're talking about Bryson Eason, Martavius French. Arkansas seems to be in good shape with them, but there just doesn't seem to be any movement quite yet. I know it feels like those guys have been like on the cusp maybe, especially Martavius French, but hadn't been any real movement yet. So next we're going to go ahead and bring Keith Grayson in. Keith is going to talk about – actually, Keith's coming up to visit us pretty quick here. He's going to be in town for the baseball series. See what he has to say.
Trey Biddy.
Keith Grayson, how you doing, brother?
Pretty good, man. Just got back into the office so I could take your call. I was driving in circles around South Phoenix listening to 3-6 Mafia collecting rent today. So
oh, yeah. 3-6 Mafia, okay. So collecting rent. So
landlord.
For those who don't know Keith Grayson, as I introduced him earlier, as the disgraced former president of the Arizona Razorback Club. Is that okay that I introduce you like that?
Yeah, that's fine. I own it. I was definitely a rabid, overzealous fan at that point, and I thought I was like a part of the team. I was trying to contact Petrino at one point to call a play during the spring game or something. But now I'm more of a real estate broker. You asked me what I do, so what I do is I'm trying to be Jim Lindsay Jr. I don't know how many kids he has, but hopefully he can adopt me at some point. But I'm in the multifamily game, so I buy homes with cash that I borrow from a rich person, and then I renovate the properties. I own a property management company. I put tenants in it, and then I sell it based on the rental income, and you can make a lot more money flipping apartment complexes and single-family houses like on HGTV. And then we keep some of them and refinance them into conventional loans after 6 months.
Keith, you're also a former junior high and high school. Did you do any high school football coaching?
I was a high school football coach, man. Let's get it straight. So
Okay, sorry.
I got promoted every year that I was on the job, and then our coach landed a new gig, and I was kind of just coaching the neighborhood team, that was right down the street from my house, and he wanted me to come over and coach their freshman team. I declined, and then they've been in the state championships the past 3 years. So he took it from like some abysmal team to playing for championships every year, and I probably could have been a DC or something at some point. But listening to y'all talk about the Little Rock School District, I think in my next life, if I ever retire from real estate, I definitely want to go back and be the head coach of Little Rock Central. That's my alma mater. I got to bring him back. I think I could do it.
So, Keith, you got a little bit of insight on Kyrie Walker, the 5-star, 6'5", 195-pound wing out of Phoenix, Arizona, Hillcrest, which you're in Phoenix right now. And you were kind of one of the first people to bring it to everybody's attention that he was looking to reclassify to 2019. You got any kind of update on Kyrie Walker?
Yeah, it's a good position. I'm officially a source.
Yes.
I think that we had assistant coaches. You said his name earlier. I can't. The new assistant's name is escaping me.
Corey Williams.
Corey Williams was out here and saw them practice 2 times last week. So it's going to be a dogfight with Kansas. I think it's either going to be Arkansas or Kansas. I was for sure thinking that he was going to go to Arkansas once the coaching change was made, because there's a little bit of backstory. Kyrie's mom was sick, and I think the way that the Musselman family kind of handled that situation definitely put them at the top of the board. So there's definitely more of a backstory than just it's definitely a relationship based recruitment that goes beyond the court.
So, Keith, you're coming in to Fayetteville. When are you getting in? I know the baseball series starts Thursday, but you're coming in for the series.
Yeah, so I'm coming in Thursday at 5:30. Hopefully, I know that's going to be pretty tight to make the game, and especially hopefully they don't have any canine units awaiting at a baggage claim at X&A, so I can get through on time.
Come on.
And also, I will tell the people that are listening to this that aren't a part of the message board and think you're kind of nerds, which Trey is the king of the nerds, but there are some benefits to it. So, like, just by being everybody kind of – I have this persona, and I write in kind of a drunk Hunter S. Thompson way. That's what I try to do anyway. I'm not saying that I'm Hunter S. Thompson by any stretch. But in doing this, I've become friends with some of the people on the board, and I got tickets, like, with the players' parents, which could turn out to be really a bad idea as well, but from a member of the board for free, I think, or face value or whatever.
Tulsa Hog?
Tulsa Hog hooked it up.
Yeah.
So if nobody knows Tulsa Hog, he drives in at every recruiting event.
He's a good man.
And runs the Catfish Hole event.
Yeah. Tulsa does a good job. What are your must-do things? First of all, when's the last time you were in Fayetteville, Arkansas? And then what are your must-dos? What do you got to do when you get here?
It's been a minute. I think I want to say, like, I usually come in for 2 games a year. My family, I have family on both on my mom's and dad's side that live up there. So my sister's graduating this weekend, and I called to say, hey, I got extra tickets to the baseball game if you want to go. She's like, oh, you're coming in for my graduation? And I said, yes, that's exactly why I'm coming in. It has nothing to do with the LSU baseball series. So I completely forgot about that. Mm-hmm. I'm the black sheep because every time I come in,
you definitely
I see my family. Sure. I see my family for 15 minutes, and then I spend like 9 hours doing Razorback athletic things. So, but one thing that I have to do every time I come in, I got to get a 50-cent Busch Light from Sassy's Red House. Are they $1 or 50 cents?
Surely they're not 50. Surely they're not 50 cents.
If you've never had a CBL, as I like to call them, and from Alan Brummett.
Yes.
And he actually has a shot that's named after me. It's invented for me. It's the rattlesnake. You just like make a noise or something, and he serves some random shot.
What is the noise?
It's just a hissing noise. You go like a rattlesnake. Well, I guess a rattle rattles, but anyway. So
Alan's a good man too.
Yeah, and then I got to go. It seems like all of my friends from college opened up restaurants. My college roommate, Luke Wetzel, he opened up Oven and Tap up in Bentonville. Oh yeah. So
that's got places got good reviews. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really talented. And then obviously Tim Farrell was Luke Wetzel's neighbor growing up, which is a small town, and he's in Little Rock, and so I got to make it to Farrell's. Unfortunately, my bar tab, I had a running tab, a credit that ran at Riley's for a while, and that's how I got to know Tim and Mike White really well, because they worked at Riley's. And I used to work at a liquor store that wholesaled all the booze to Dixon Street bars, and occasionally there would be an extra bottle or two in there, and I'd get a credit at the bars. So that's how I survived in college.
Well, Keith, anything else to add to today's show? You got any opinion on baseball, basketball, football, recruiting? You heard some of the stuff Danny West said. Got any more comments you want to share with us?
So the natural 21 is now just the top 10?
No, we did 21, but Danny would go on and on about every single one of them, and I knew he even went a little too long on the top 10, so we just focused on the top 10. But the article is on hogsports.com, hawgsports.com, and you can see the full list there.
Well, what's kind of, it's a little concerning that I want to say that I've heard something off the record through a recruiting writer. I don't know if it was you or not, that the football coaches felt that if they won 6 games this year, they were going to have a top 10 class or something like that. And we're way off of that mark right now. I mean, with Nick going to TCU, I know he was at the top of their board or close to it, right? And then the Oklahoma kids are wavering, and my recent home purchases in Whitehaven haven't come through yet.
Well,
I
think you make a lot of good points about where recruits view this program right now. And, last year when they were recruiting off of a lot of hope. They didn't have a 2-win season, but they kept a lot of those guys on board. I mean, pretty much everybody stayed on board despite the 2-win season. And this year I think they're probably having to fight that a little bit. But if they can get off to a really good start, they've got that Ole Miss game second week. Winning that game would be huge for them. I think that's a possible win for them, even in Oxford. If you can win your 4 non-conference games, you take that Ole Miss game, there's 5 right there. We talked a little bit on the show the other day about Missouri. Is that a possibility? They kind of let go of the rope last year in the Missouri game. Ole Miss got hit hard in the draft also and lost their starting quarterback. Mississippi State got hit hard in the draft and lost their starting quarterback. And Kentucky got hit hard in the draft also, although I think Mike Stoops has done a good job building that from the ground up. But there's some possibles. I mean, they win those 4, they get Ole Miss, they get one more SEC game, then that's right there in bowl contention.
Yeah, I sure hope so. I mean, it just sucks that that's it is what it is.
Hey, baby steps. That's actually that's a pretty big step from 2 wins.
I know. Yeah, because you set the bar so damn low. Like, who cares what you do?
It's super low.
If you win 0 games, then it's pretty easy to do better. And I think in to get Chad's back a little bit, he did the same thing at SMU. And so if you build it the right way and kind of slowly, you're not in line to get fired. I mean, but he set that bar so low. Not that they're doing it on purpose. Sometimes the play calling was so vanilla that you thought they may be, but
they didn't open up a lot last year for sure. They're going to open up more. I mean, they changed the quarterback position. That's the biggest thing on the field. More than half the roster now is Chad Morris players, and they got a few playmakers out there like Trey Knox and some on the way like Traylon Burks too.
Isn't it refreshing though to see that? After, and I'm not going to bag on Anderson here, but Bielema for sure. Meeting that guy, it almost felt like he was – I know he'd cry in the postgame all the time, but it almost felt like he was like, what are you going to do, fire me and give me $13 million and back a Brinks truck up to my house and tell me to move? Like, who cares?
There are a few problems that Bielema had, and one of them was he kind of thought he had a little bit more leadership within his team and kind of let the 2016 team, take it, and then we saw – late game collapses. And I think, he didn't recruit Texas, didn't bring in assistants with ties to Texas. There's several things, and then kind of abandoned some things there at the end. I mean, they tried to go to a hurry-up, no-huddle offense against Auburn. They're going to spend 2 weeks and revamp the whole offense, go to a 3-4 defense in your last year. There were a lot of, last-ditch effort types of things, but mainly they didn't recruit enough playmakers. I mean, you look at this roster, you look at the 2015 recruiting class, for example. I mean, there's some good guys in there, but there's not a lot. I mean, 2014 recruiting class is not a lot. Really that 2013 class was really his best ever. 2016 had some good guys in it too. But man, it was just recruiting is what it came down to.
The biggest thing to me is, can't you see such a vast difference between what effort looks like maximum effort from a coach's, like what they're doing on the recruiting trail in basketball and football. And it's
definitely
like
evident in
concept.
recruiting. Yes, there's no question about it. It is when you look at recruiting. There's not been any moments with Morris where I've said, man, if they would just do this, then it would make such a difference. It seems like such a small thing. There's never been an instance like that where with Brett there were plenty of instances like that. All right, Keith, we got to move the show along. I really appreciate you joining us.
Tell Pete my offer still stands, that he can quit his job and sit with me on Saturday, because he doesn't have to sit in the press box. So we got good seats.
Okay, maybe you can pass that on. All right, later, brother. All right. Keith Grayson, always entertaining, joining us. Now we're going to move straight on into Pete Roulier, if I can find his graphic here. We'll move into Pete Roulier. He's going to talk a little bit about Arkansas's baseball series against Kentucky and then looking ahead to the LSU game. Let's see, where's Pete? Pete always comes in a little hot, so we got to dial him down.
Hey, Trey, Keith was not lying. He really did offer me baseball tickets. I quit my job with you guys, but I still say no.
You said no? It was tempting?
I'm enjoying my job. Yeah, it was a tempting offer to get a 50-cent Busch Light with them after the game, but I think I set my standards higher.
A 50-cent Busch Light at Sassy's. I'm not even sure. Is that accurate? Sassy's has 50-cent Busch Light.
No, you can't get a 50-cent Busch Light.
We used to get this beer called Southpaw. It was like the bottom of the grade, and it was talls, and they were equal to like 25 cents or something when I was in college.
Sounds like it's right up Keith's wheelhouse.
Yeah, a piercing headache the next day. All right, let's see what we got here for you, Pete. So Arkansas won the Kentucky series 2-1. They return home to face LSU on Thursday in a 3-game series, Thursday, Friday, Saturday in Baum Walker. I guess, talk a little bit about the Kentucky series, and we'll talk about the LSU series at the end.
I think a lot of Hog fans are disappointed that you said they took 2 of 3 against Kentucky, because I feel like a lot of people think that they should have gone on and won that last game for the sweep, and they probably would have won it if it wasn't 7 inning games, right? Mm-hmm. So they had to post the game on Saturday, and then 7 innings. Kentucky went ahead and saved their ace, Zach Thompson, for that Sunday game, and he gave them all 6.1 of 7 innings. So if they didn't have to face Kentucky's ace, they were pretty much out of pitchers. And the way that game was going in the top of the 7th inning, it looks like Arkansas probably would have finished off that sweep. And sticking with the Kentucky series, I think it was good for Arkansas to get DH Matt Goodhart back. Mm-hmm. He had a couple he kind of took him a while to find the ball. But in that last game, he went 2 for 3 and looked like his old self, so that's good for them. Then I think the big thing is it looks like Cody Scroggins is back and healthy, and he's going to be a big addition to the bullpen. He was a Sunday starter, but you got Patrick Wicklander and Connor Nolan throwing as well as they have been. Now you got a great addition to the bullpen that a lot of people were worried about, and then getting Jacob Kostychuk back, he came in and threw a couple good innings. That really shores up the bullpen. I think Arkansas is playing their best baseball right now. Mm-hmm. So given that, I want to go into the LSU series.
Yeah, you pretty much answered the bullpen, but there was a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you first. But this year's team, Danny's done a couple of studies on this year's team compared to last year's team. What are your thoughts on I don't know, maybe if these two teams face each other in a 3-game series or something like that, or what's the comparison to last year's team?
No one's ever asked what if those two teams face each other in a 3-game series? That's a really tough question to answer. But I'm full of tough questions,
Pete.
I know. I was talking to Phil Elson, the voice of the Razorbacks, earlier, and he thinks that they're just very similar teams, right? Mm-hmm. So at the beginning of the year, it looked like this team was going to be a little more of a small ball type of deal with all the stolen bases and all the bunting and stuff that was going on. But then they realized that they had some dudes on this team that they didn't think were going to be dudes. Like, for example, Christian Franklin, and Trevor Ezell. And just top to bottom, 1 through 9, there's not an easy out on this team. So that's one of the big similarities from last year that really sticks out to me. And then in terms of pitching, you'd think that last year was better just because they had more experience. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if Casey Murphy has the arm talent. Casey Murphy was the second starter for Arkansas last year. And he was consistent just because he was older. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he's got the arm talent of Patrick Wicklander. Wicklander's just younger. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they had a Connor Nolan at that 3 spot. Isaiah Campbell was really inconsistent. Connor Nolan's kind of the same way, a little inconsistent, but he's got some downings this year as well. So the similarities are like spot on. I think they're pretty much the exact same team, and the only difference between last year's team and this year's team was the bullpen. But now that you got Scroggins back and Jacob Kostychuk's doing what he's doing, you kind of have that Barrett Lowski or Jake Rondo from last year. You got those two guys that can go long in relief. Mm-hmm. So I think they're very similar. It'll be interesting to see how they do. This team's also a better road team, which was a big concern last year. I don't know what it is with these young guys. Maybe there's more pressure to play at home at Baum with all those guys with the huge crowds than there is on the road. But they've been a better road team this year. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Pete Roulier joining us here on Hog Sports Live. Be sure to like, share, follow, comment if you haven't done so already. Throw us 5 stars if you're listening on podcast. If you haven't subscribed to hogsports.com, I want to remind everybody you can sign up right now for just $1 for your first month, or you can sign up for a year, take a 7-day free trial, and get 30% off your first year if you decide to stick with it. So almost nothing to lose there if you want to sign up at hogsports.com, get all the great content from me, Danny, Pete. That we offer there. So, Pete, I want to go ahead and jump into the LSU series real quick here, and we'll talk maybe a little bit about Major League Razorbacks if we have a little time, but just the LSU series coming up on Thursday.
Okay, so I think that Arkansas, if I'm just going to go with predictions, is going to take 2 of 3. And I know that Paul Maneri has had Arkansas's number these last, I think, 7 years. I don't know if Arkansas has won a series against LSU, but this year feels a little bit different. Just based on the fact that Arkansas's got everything going. I don't think LSU has a team that they're used to having down in Baton Rouge. And then coming into Baum, I think it's going to be – a lot of people are expecting the Arkansas fans to break the record. Mm-hmm. And then another fact that I want to weigh into this series is that LSU could have had all the momentum in the world coming into the series. A lot of people don't know this, but their last game on Sunday night against Ole Miss – they were down 15-9 in the bottom of the 9th inning. With 2 outs, somehow they managed to score 6 runs and tie the game up. So to force extra innings, so you're thinking, wow, they're going to have all the momentum coming into this Arkansas series after something like that. And then they managed to give up 4 runs at the 10th, and they couldn't get it back. So they ended up dropping that series. They probably got their heads down thinking, man, they could have been in a really good position coming into this Arkansas series. And now Arkansas's got all the momentum coming into the series. So I think it'll be a great atmosphere, and I think Arkansas is going to finally break through and win the series this weekend.
All right, Danny, Pete. Real quick, let's wrap this up. Can you give me 30 seconds just on the Major League Razorbacks?
If you give me 30 seconds, I won't go Major League Razorbacks, but if you read my articles on the Pro Hogs, I like to do a little minor league thing. So I'll do a quick update on Grant Cook, who's playing for the Greensboro Grasshoppers in Single A. Heck of a defensive catcher, but he's been on fire from the plate recently. He just snapped an 8-game hitting streak, and he's had, I think, 4 multi-hit games in a row before that, and then something like 6 multi-hit games on the year. So he's kind of picking it up in Single A, and also Blaine Knight's been killing it in Single A with the Delmavor. Shorebirds or something like that. These minor league teams are crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my quick update, Trey. Thanks for having me.
All right, Pete. That's Pete Roulier joining us on Hog Sports Live. Pete's been with us for about 4 months now, something like that. I guess since maybe February. So he does a great job covering Razorback baseball. Also does basketball, football. Helps in on recruiting. Kind of a do everything type of guy. So let's see if we got a couple of things. Kevin Deshaun Spencer says, "Can you give us an update on basketball regarding current players on campus thinking of leaving?" I haven't really heard a whole lot of that. I mean, there was some stuff early, but there hasn't been a whole lot about players leaving now. I'm not saying there won't be somebody leave. I think that's definitely possible, but right now hasn't been a whole lot. I think probably after the semester is over. Dame Dolaz says, "Trey, have you heard anything on TJ Hammond's health and his status with the team? Also, is he projected at wide receiver or running back?" So TJ, it's not a health issue, but when everything went down with TJ Hammonds, with Chad Moore saying he's not a part of the team, you're like, well, is he transferring? And he was kind of like, I don't know what he's doing. So when he answered kind of vaguely like that, that let me know that there was probably something that he couldn't comment on, like a medical or an academic or maybe some other type of personal issue that he couldn't comment on. But I have communicated with TJ's camp, and he is planning to rejoin the team this summer. So, and he will be at running back, and they need him at running back. That's an area definitely of need where they need some ball carriers. And he's a junior, so that definitely helps that area. you there. So, all right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I want to thank you for joining us on Hog Sports Live today. Again, if you haven't thrown that thumbs up, go ahead and give us a thumbs up, like, share, follow, comment. I hate to have to ask that all the time, but it is important to help us get our message out there. If you're listening on podcast, be sure to subscribe to the show. There's a lot of ways to watch and listen. We're on Facebook Live, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. If you like this kind of content, there's a whole lot more at hogsports.com. Again, HAWG sports.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. For the last 12 months now, it's been a great changeover for us moving to 24/7 Sports. It's just $1 for your first month right now if you sign up at hogsports.com, or you can sign up for a year, take a 7-day free trial with that, and then get 30% off your first year. So, all right, for Danny West, for Pete Roulier, this has been Trey Biddy with hogsports.com, and we'll catch you next time.